All right. Got it.
All right, is it going? Let's see if it's going. All right, it's setting. All right, it's setting it up now. Okay, there we go. There we go. All right. Just gonna put something in here quickly. Put this in here. All right. Put the thumbnail in that. Put that in here. Put that there. All right. It looks like, all right, we're gonna get save all this and all right, is it saved? Is it going? Okay. All right, let me make sure. Yeah, all right. It looks like it's saved. So there we go. All right, get rid of this one. All right. All right, it looks like we're live streaming now. So let me add this here.
Like, dude.
All right. What is up? Let's add Niels to this. Actually, no, I'm gonna add sad and caffeinated to it. So you can
All
stream
right.
invite.
Is it the same YouTube link that you put out?
No, it's a different one now.
Okay.
But I'll send you that.
All right.
I'm gonna send you that now. All right. What is up? Let's add Niels to this. Oh, cool. There we go. I can hear that. All right.
All right, sick, dude.
Cool. All right. We're going to turn the volume off on that so we don't get weird bleed and all that. All right. Okay.
Do I
Just,
need to mute it on my side or like turn the volume down?
yeah, you're going to want to do that on the, on your phone. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I just do that.
All right. Uh, view my channel. I'm just going to absolutely confirm that this is going.
Hey, what's up, Kyle?
All right, cool. It is going. All right, awesome. All right, cool. Now I can monitor the chat and everything. All right, everyone. Thanks for your patience. All right, we are here and we are live, and this is happening right now. All right, Sue, we got Niels back on here, dude. How are you doing?
Rock and roll, dude. Doing pretty good. Drinking a chai
Awesome.
tea latte, dude. Hell yeah.
That's how it's done. That's how it's done.
For sure.
So, So the reason I got Niels back on here today, aside from the fact that I love this guy, is because you have started a new label. And I don't mean just another record label. This is like a really, really special one. There's some cool stuff going on in here.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I'm really excited. Basically, like I have all these bands I play in, like, friends that have music that's like made that I really love. And like I've always been kind of frustrated by the fact that, like, for whatever reason the scene wasn't unified. And like I feel like it's really important to just, take initiative right now and get all my friends' bands together and figure out what we can do as like a collective unit. Is like, even, the playlists I've been making for myself. I've been making these Spotify playlists, and they've been getting me tons of streams and, like, tons of reach because I've been getting thousands of follows on these playlists. And like, I really realized, like, in the past, couple weeks, like, well, this is great for me, but like we need an entire generation of bands to like rise up together. And it can't be an individual effort. All my favorite scenes, have their own indie labels. Like, even looking at like Lookout Records, Green Day's, first label that they were on, this guy named Larry Livermore that would just, help bands, get attention on them, like, do releases for them. It was friends helping friends. It wasn't like a thing where they were trying to, like, profit hardcore off of anybody. It was just like, we love this music. It needs to be heard. So let's figure out as a group of friends, like, how we can help each other out with each other's skill sets. And I really want to like be that guy for my friends' bands, because like I'm tired of my friends not being listened to, because my friends like honestly make some of my favorite music, and I just I'm really passionate about it.
See, this is what I think the traditional label end of things is missing, unfortunately, is that sense of community. We were talking about this before off camera, but like this goes back to even the grunge era of things. When when you hear in that interview we were talking about that Rick Beato did with Chris Novoselic and wow, really
Soundgarden.
right now, and Kim Thale.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
they're and they were talking about how like years and years and years before any of those bands in the 90s put out like their first album, and there were like different iterations of the bands and whatever, they were all friends with each other. A lot of them like would live in the same house, or they lived in the same apartment together, and they would do house parties, and early versions of Soundgarden would play, and you'd have the guys from Nirvana there, you'd have the guys from Mudhoney there, you'd have the guys from the Melvins there. You had all these different, everyone that was in all the names that you think of when you think of 90s rock and grunge, they were all friends with each other. And the big thing was they weren't just out for blood. Nobody was talking smack about all the other bands. Everyone genuinely loved all the music that everyone else was putting out. So you wouldn't have people just saying, yo, check out the new song we did. You'd also have them going, oh my God, did you hear the new song that Nirvana just wrote? Oh my God, it's insane. And that's like years before Bleach even came out. So that sense of community, it sounds like you're mirroring that as well, which sadly is lost today in terms of just in terms of just so many, I guess, local bands, but even mainstream bands to a certain degree. You're bringing that back, and you're doing it in a way that's not the overused traditional label uh, style of things. Like the playlists you were talking about, those playlists are so creative, and they have different, like, I love the titles for all of them, and it makes sense, and they're unique, and you're not trying to pander to a business model that doesn't always work. And most importantly, it's all the whole reason behind all this, like you said, is just no, people are not listening to my friend's music and I'm tired of it. Here, listen to it. And
Yeah, dude.
I'm gonna put a whole format together so that people are gonna actually want to listen to this. Like, hey, listen to this. Come on.
No, I mean it's true, dude. And I haven't just done it for like myself and pop punk. Like I've even figured out how to do it for my friend Remy Mulder, who like right now is making acoustic music more in that Noah Kahn world. And we literally made him a playlist like 2 days, like 3 or 4 days ago, and like it's already at 27 saves. But the big thing that I've learned about these playlists is it's really the titles that like you make the playlist and understanding the culture of the people you're trying to communicate to. Like, you know, a lot of these bands on TikTok, it's very pushy or like, or we're for fans of, like, and that can get you like, some fans like, but like, I think like the thing that's really missing is like, that organic music discovery. And I really loved that when I was, a teenager, like having things like Vans Warped Tour or even going to the Vans store and
Yeah.
hearing, the songs over the loudspeaker and having that be like my soundtrack where like I felt like I'm the one doing the discovering. Like I'm not having some band come up in my face and tell me I'm the next best thing. It's like, okay, like that's very ego driven. And unfortunately, I think a lot of the reason these bands have been doing that is because they feel like they have to go at it alone. I don't think anyone wants to do that. I just think it's the only option really given to our generation because there aren't labels, or if they are, they're very, hard to get on, or it's a raw deal, or they're like, you have to have an audience before we help you. And they don't want to have anything to do with, artist development. And what's been interesting is ever since I've started this, like, I've had a lot of friends, bands reach out and ask me questions of like, how do you do this for yourself? And I'm very open. I give them the tools, and I don't hide any of the things that have worked for me. And with Remy, for instance, he's the other band on Sad and Caffeinated. Me and Remy are and we're vastly different genres, and we'll go into that later. But I feel like that's the other thing. It's like there's an unwillingness to work with bands that don't seem like they're kosher. But again, with the music discovery thing, when I think about like the best years of Warped Tour, like it was not just a metalcore fest or just a pop punk festival. You had bands like the Black Eyed Peas, Eminem, like even Katy Perry, like Cool Kids, Echo Smith, like more on the indie rock side. Like there was a it was just a good music tour. And I think like for me being such a fan of music, and also like with the playlisting and figuring out how to get the music to people, the fact that I love so many different styles of music equally, it makes it very fun for me to curate playlists for friends that are like, oh, I don't know who I sound like, or I don't know who I would be a good, person to open up a tour for. And I'm like, oh, well, immediately when I hear my friends' bands, I'm like, oh yeah, they should be on tour with this guy and this guy. And how do we do it? We put them in a playlist and, get the data, to rub up against each other, like next to the bands, and you can literally change your fans also like within 5,000 playlist saves. Like I've seen it for myself where like I've got myself paired with another one down. My friend Marcus's band, the guy who
Right.
produces Used to Be Valentine's, awesome co-writer, awesome friend. And like literally, if you look at Used to Be Valentine's radio, like that's for me, like it is Used to Be Valentine's, another one down, Used to Be Valentine's, another one down for like 10 songs in a row. And it's like the funniest thing, but I've trained the algorithm to place me to bands that I want to be alongside, and even on a greater, like on a bigger level, not greater level, because like Another One Down is one of my favorite bands too, but like the bands that are like the hottest bands right now, like say like Hot Mulligan or Heart Attack Man, or The Story So Far is other project No Pressure. I will have my Spotify punk mix now have Used to Be Valentine's, Heart Attack Man, and Hot Mulligan.
Right.
And the other times it's not me featured as one of those three in my mixes. It's literally another one down. And it feels good knowing that like I'm getting that, data to Spotify to help us with organic, reach like through radio. Because a lot of Spotify, this kind of thing is like people are like, oh, I don't like algorithms. Algorithms are great. The problem is algorithms don't work if the algorithm doesn't know what to do with you. If they
Yeah.
know what to do with you, they can give you a great day. Like the other day, I had like 159 monthly listeners. Usually I get like anywhere from 50 to 100. And I was like, where's this bump coming from? It's like, oh, Spotify radio, put me in front of 89 people yesterday. Why
Right.
did they do that? Because they know where to put me now. Because I helped do the work to make it so I was understood. And that's where some of my like reason for having this label is like, okay, like I understand where my friends' bands could go, like that maybe don't listen to as much music as I do. And I'm like, if I have that foresight and I've been able to do this for not only me, but Remy, like Remy had an indie rock playlist. We got up to like over 1,000 saves. And like, it's still, even if he's not promoting it, there's a certain audience there that will always come back to that playlist. And I've even had people like reach out in my comment section on my playlist accounts and saying like, this is the soundtrack to my year. Like I literally listen to this when I'm cooking with my fiance. And
Yep.
it's like not only is it helpful to us as like band people getting our music heard, it's helpful to music fans. And a big thing I've been, kind of preaching and talking about on my Sad and Caffeinated TikTok is,
That's the
organic.
name of, by the way, in case anyone's asking, that is what the name of the label is. Sad and
Yeah,
caffeinated.
caffeinated. I love chai tea. But like, dude, it's like on the fan side of things, people want to feel like they're discovering something and have something be new to their life. That that it's their decision, not something that's shoved down their throat because someone's spending a shit ton of money to get in front of their face. Like it's like, and that's what I love about these playlists. And seeing in my Spotify for artists, like, okay, this month we got added into 339 user playlists. That's great. It means people like our music, but it also means that this is a beneficial thing to people that don't make music. And I think that's where the disconnect is like a lot of bands forget how to be fans And
Yeah.
like I think the reason like literally every band hits is because they know what it's like to be a fan, and they still nurture the fan in themselves, and they remember like how they like to be addressed and spoken to, and
Yes.
really it just comes down to not being pushy and making good stuff. And that's really like a super simple version of like how you connect with anyone, man. Like
Yeah.
yeah,
And the fact that and the fact that you are, there's a lot there. But yeah, so like one of the things you said, so many bands are like, I don't know who I sound like. But you've taken that step, and because you listen to so many styles of music, you're able to curate these playlists
yeah,
and pair all these different artists up with other artists that are that do sound somewhat similar to them. And what that does is that it does, like what you said
yeah,
before, it doesn't just benefit the artist, it really benefits the listener, because the listener is now going to hear not just the one artist that you're talking about, but they're going to hear a whole bunch of other ones too. And then what does that do? That starts that community of people that want to hear all these different artists. And then on the business end of things, then those artists that are in that playlist, now they know what to do when they put bills together. They know what to do when they want to put a tour together.
yeah.
Okay. They know they have a more broad understanding of like what their image is, and then they know how to put like their merch together, flyers, their own social media and stuff like that. and and you're right, bands do unfortunately forget how to be fans because we get so inside of our own creative process. And not only that, we can get so wrapped up, we were talking about this before, we can get so wrapped up in the just the marketing end of things and forget about what the reason we got into music in the first place was to write songs that we enjoy playing and to play them to people. And because I think we get so wrapped up in the marketing end of things and the business end of things, sometimes you don't spend as much time on your art, and then the art then can be rushed, and then you're putting out something that you're not as proud of. I know I'm kind of rambling here,
Yeah.
but I hope you get what I'm saying.
I agree with everything you're saying, and I don't think it is for everybody. Like being the business person, being the musician, being the songwriter, like there are definitely everybody should be aware how to put that hat on at times, and that's another reason I made this label. Like I've expressed some of the sad and caffeinated ideas to other people. I'm like, oh, you could do this for your scene, and it like straight up just stressed them out, dude. Like they didn't want to do it, and then I realized like, okay, like some of my friends, but then some of those friends are like, brilliant producers or brilliant, people like brilliant songwriters or like they know how to flex social media. Like everybody has their own skill set. And like I think that is the other thing about having a collective team of like, okay, if you can't do this, I can help you with this, and maybe you can help me with that. And like, you know, it's not like everybody has to be goated at everything. Like everybody kind of has their interests, and I think everyone's more than capable of doing whatever they set their mind to. But it's and you can learn any skill set, but if you're not particularly interested in the skill set, it can be monotonous, and it can take you away from the things you're actually really passionate about. And
Right.
I feel like for me, like music business, like, and it's not like I'm interested in music business like I don't think about it every day. I think about how do I get people to connect with the music that like my friends are making? Because like I know like when my friends talk to me about how excited they are about their music or what their song's about or who they are as a person, like off the camera where there's no societal pressure of like how am I perceived? How do I need to make myself? Like they are some of the most pure people ever. And a lot of like what I've been learning as I become like more of a public figure now that the TikTok's booming. Yo, what's up, Long Boy? Long Boy is literally a band that like I met on TikTok like 2 days ago, and now we're working on some shows like in Sacramento and in San Francisco, and it's epic, dude.
That's
But
awesome.
it's just like it's all about putting yourself out there, talking about what you're passionate about, and finding other people that are passionate about it. Like and creating that comfortability with yourself too, like that you're not going to be thrown off if someone on the internet thinks you're stupid or whatever. But like that's another skill set in itself. And I've been helping, talk to some of my friends about like, how do you put yourself in the public and still be who you are without the camera? Like, but now the camera's in front of you. Cause I think that's the biggest thing holding back a lot of the artists is like, that's why they hide behind like, oh, we're fans of like, do you like Green Day or Blink-182? And I've done this myself. So I'm not calling anyone out. I've done all this shit too. But like, it's hiding, like you don't have to be your full self if you can hide behind a brand bigger than yourself. When you put yourself out on the limb, it can be scary because like you can straight up be attacked. Like I did a video on Scott Pilgrim and like people like ripped me to shreds. It was getting mega likes, so a lot of people were agreeing, was getting a lot of hate comments and was growing real fast. And I took that down because I personally felt like uncomfortable with the amount of attention I had on me. But the other thing is if we want to, make careers out of this, the other aspect of label stuff that I'm like kind of helping, artist manager like management is like having, hour phone calls with some of the people that want to work with me and like talking them through like what are their insecurities that they're scared of if people saw them for who they are, like who they actually are. Because like I've found the more open I am and the more unfiltered I am, the more attractive my messages are and the more it relates to people and the more the like ratio is. Like I'm averaging, basically like 2 to 5 likes every 10 views now. And I'm only saying that because I realized like that's the key to like success in any of this. It's like being yourself and really just not giving a fuck about anybody who thinks you're stupid. Because like again, like Longboy, for instance, they saw one of my videos, they resonated with it, and they're like, hey, we'd love to be part of this. And like now we're working together, dude. Like if I held myself back from saying the stuff I wanted to say, I would have never met Longboy. And like I'm excited to see where that relationship develops. But like that's the other thing is like I think that a lot of artists don't have a soundboard to like, just say whatever they want to say to someone, be like, these are my thoughts. What do I do? And it's like, all right, well, let's think about it together. And it's not me telling them what to do. It's me having a conversation with them. Like, how do you want to represent yourself? Like, how are we going to get your message across the way you would say it, not the way I would say it,
Yes.
and get that person to discover their voice outside of the song? Because ultimately, like these artists that only have good music, they can only go so far.
Right.
Like and like I'm reading this book from Miles Copeland because like that guy's the goat, broke the
Yes.
police, broke, the Go-Go's, lots of new waiver bands, did TV stuff too. But one of the interviews I watched with him, he was talking about like, controversy and like how that is necessary in order to break a band. And, it doesn't mean you have to be a dickhead on the internet, but it means that you got to be passionate about something. Like if you don't have something you're passionate about, like that sucks. But I don't even think that, man. I think everybody has something they're passionate about. Everybody has something they can speak unfiltered about, not have to think, how do I make content? It's just, again, finding the comfortability to just not worry about like the repercussions for what you say. Because like if you're not a shitty person, it's not going to come off like that. And like if you judge yourself like based off of like what your intention was behind the message, you're going to be fine. Because like as long as you know the intention of what you say is good, it's good. If your intention is bad, of course it's bad. And people can read that, dude. I think that's the other thing is like people can sometimes think the audience is stupid or like needs things spoon fed or like, filtered. They don't want that, dude. Like it's like people can sniff out fake. And it's just like, any other interaction in the public. It's like say what you want to say, obviously be appropriate about it. Don't overstep, but like just be yourself and stop, wearing a mask. And the more you can take that mask off, the more you can connect with people.
That's the other thing too that I think that's the one of the biggest things that sets your label apart from the standard label is you're all about presenting the artist as they are, and you're dissuading them from trying to say something that is, we'll just call safe. Okay, because you're all about presenting authenticity here. You're trying to show the artist for who they really are. And the age old story of so many record labels is they grab a band and then they try to mold them into what the label thinks is
Yeah.
going to connect with the flavor of the month. They modeled whatever artist they get off of the flavor of the month. And that artist does not want to do that kind of thing. They want to do something else. And the label's like, nope, that's not gonna make us money. We're gonna do this, and this is what's gonna happen. And then you end up with a bunch of homogenized shit. And again, the other thing you said too, a lot of people think the audience is stupid. No, the audience can tell when something is real or if it's a load of garbage. And why do you think? I think we said this earlier. Why do you think that is? I mean, that's the reason why we haven't had uh, a very identifiable pop star in the past like 5 or 7 years. You know, I mean, call me. I mean, this is coming from the guy that's wearing the Meshuggah
Yeah.
shirt. I understand that, but again, like, how do I put this? Just the 5 years ago, pop stars were putting out some stuff that like made you go, oh, okay, I dig this. But now, like, what's cool that came out last week? I don't know.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that pop and like even rock labels too, like they're so obsessed with yesteryear
Yes.
because it's safe. And like there's a thing I read about, growth in general, whether it's music or anything, is like every time you aren't growing, you're not stagnating, you're falling behind. And like there have been times in my life, where I'm very inactive. And like some of the reason why I'm, really stoked on Sad and Caffeinated is it's forcing me to be the person I'm claiming to be. And like the more, into this I get, the more I'm like, wow, my life has changed more in the past 2 weeks than it has in like the past 2 years,
Hmm.
which is like insane. And I've had spurts of like, 2 or 3 weeks things, like, when the playlist stuff happened, it was a big game changer for me, like back in September. And it accelerated the need to have the good years as the album as a full come out in October. And again, like that, like, Marcus and I initially were thinking like, oh, single month, because that's what the trend is, like you have a single every 6 to 8 weeks. And I honestly think that's garbage, dude. I've watched my entire, album grow up, together, like 23,000 streams in like 5 months for like an entire album. Like, sure, like some songs have more, like Beverly's about to hit 5,000 and All We Ever Wanted to Be has been out longer. And but Beverly surpassed All We Ever Wanted to Be because people like it more, which is cool. But like it show it like, and it's helped with the playlist, for instance, too. It's like check out like how some of my sad songs like Toby and Kirsten and King of Second Chances, like the more moody stuff, it worked better in winter. Right now it's time for the fun aspect. Like, Beverly's both, but you got think Quit Sports, like it's not called Quit Sports, it's called This Town's Alive. That was the working title for like years. But
Yeah.
anyways, This Town's Alive, Things Will Never Change, summer songs, fun songs, spring songs. And I think like, you know, if you have your stuff out as a whole, people can enjoy it when they want to enjoy it instead of like holding back stuff from people. But this whole single culture that like is very, you know, promoted by like the major labels and a bunch of influencers on Instagram of how to do it. Like for me, like I think that is it's a bad decision because like if you're trying to actually cultivate a fan base, like holding back stuff from them is it's not gonna work, dude. Like no one's a fan of like a band with 3 songs. And as soon as I started having like a full album out and like, a song I did with Joe Raz called Without You, like I've had way more repeat listenership. And like I can tell that from the Spotify, stuff where it's like straight up, like it tells me like, okay, I have 1,000 monthly listeners this month, but you count up all the ones, people that listen every day, and the number is 1,800. I'm like, I have 800 people that listen to me more than once a month. Like, why does that retention exist? Because they have other stuff to come out, listen to. And now every song gets about the same streams every day, whether or not it's pushed in the playlist. So it's like that's how you build a real thing. It's about quality and not quantity. And back to your original thing about these, why we haven't had like a new pop star or anything like nothing about single culture is necessarily sustainable. Like the whole flavor of the week kind of thing, being very reactive, like how you write, like goes back to having that authentic voice. It's like if Green Day, like back in the day, tried out a bunch of sounds, and was just basically throwing like darts at the board and like missing, and then it's a bullseye, and then the next thing is like a total deviation, so it's like not even on the board. Like you have this really unfocused vision, and I think that for people in general, like the more focused in you are on your vision, and the more people see the consistency in your focus, they realize like, oh, this person's here to stay, they're not moving, and they're just being themselves. I really want to check out what they do, like why are they going against the grain? And it's because they actually have a statement to say. It's not just like them trying to say something so people like them. And that's where I think a lot of this artist development stuff has been kind of thrown out the window with these bigger labels, is because like what I'm trying to do is focus on how do we get your authentic voice to be the best it can be. And you look at people that are at the top of like pop, like Taylor Swift, like hella authentic, like I mean, straight up, every album is different from the last, and they all connect, tie into each other, and they're all like, tie into where she's at personal life wise, like Reputation, not everyone's favorite record, very abrasive, very, you know, very like I have something to prove, I have something to say. I'm tired of people like saying I'm, just an innocent pop girl, and like I'm gonna be a little edgy. Sure, some people can say it's a little cringe, but hey, that's the album she had to make in order to like realize, oh, that actually wasn't my best album. I'm gonna go into hiding a little bit, make Lover, and then go into the woods, make Folklore and Evermore, and then redo all of her stuff is like a statement. Like there are other bands that have re-recorded their stuff like for the same reasons, but it's never been as successful as Taylor, because Taylor, again, community. It's not about her. It's about, this is for artists in general. This is giving artists permission, as a whole, to do this. Like, Kelly Clarkson and Reba McEntire were like very much insistent that this is a move she could do. And, again, like she's got a community of women that are also pop stars that mentor her, like, can toss ideas around with each other and ultimately lift each other up instead of being gatekeepy and mean. And, even Katy Perry was at an Eras tour, and, the Bad Blood's about them like stealing each other's dancers for
Yeah.
a tour. And, look, they put the Bad Blood aside and they can laugh about it.
Yeah.
Like, but I think that, the pop stars that aren't Taylor Swift or from yesteryear that are like, can basically do whatever they want, like they definitely are put at a little bit of a disadvantage, like outside of Olivia Rodrigo, because they they don't come from a counterculture necessarily, or a unified counterculture. I was thinking about Lil Nas X a lot recently about
Yeah.
you know, uh Old Town Road. I was
Yes.
thinking like, why didn't that hit? And I was like, it probably didn't hit because there wasn't enough cowboy rap surrounding him. Because like if there was a whole movement and cowboy rap became like a straight up niche, and like there were other players in the field like one up in each other and be like, oh shit, they did it that way, I got to do it that way, and forcing everyone in the scene to be more creative, like the way literally any other scene works. Like you look at like, classic example of like Paul McCartney in the British Invasion.
Yes.
Like, he hears pet sounds, he starts crying because like he's like, how am I going to top this? And what does he do? He did Sergeant Pepper's, and like,
Yeah.
like obviously that's not the most healthy way like to go about like I got
Uh,
to be better than be my friends, but you wouldn't have the amount of creativity in a space if you didn't like love your fellow band stuff and were inspired, whether positive or negative, to push it even further. But without these pop stars that have these one hit wonders, that they don't have other peers that push them, forward to improve, or like either by like, oh shit, he's taking the limelight, I got to do something about this, or oh wow, he really did that. That inspired me to think like maybe like more like him. It's like you rub up against each other like influential wise, and you can have like a 5 year kind of vibe around something. But with these one-off pop stars like that are like coming out today, like because there's no community, there's no there's no forced creativity to keep your sound alive or relevant or fresh.
Would you say, though, maybe just to play devil's advocate a little bit here, because I agree with what you're saying, but, would you say, though, that maybe what one instance where, let's say that there is a demand for a certain sound, and but there isn't necessarily anyone out there doing it at the moment, but then one artist comes along and then does that thing, which
Yeah,
there aren't other artists doing. Like the classic example is in the height of hair metal, GNR does Appetite. There
yeah.
wasn't another band in the mainstream doing that at that point. So they probably didn't necessarily have that community of other artists, at least that were higher up there doing the same thing, you know?
Someone's got to be the trendsetter, and it's also adjacent. Like it's definitely like Motley Crue were the bad boys before then, playing in D standard and like talking about more CD, like underbelly kind of themes, like songs like Wild Side or Shout at the Devil, like, and it definitely had more grit. And I'd even put Rat in that world too,
Oh,
like not as commercial, but like they definitely like songs like Wanted Man. Like there's more of like a sleazy, creepy, like out of the cellar kind of attitude to it. Whereas like Guns N' Roses, like it did definitely there are bands that come out of nowhere where you're like, okay, like, but at the same time they didn't really like. I really see like Guns N' Roses as kind of like hair metal. If like Slash like plays a lot like Joe Perry, like it's like kind of like if you got more of the classic rock into hair metal because you got more of the blues again, but you
right.
got like the modern production styles of hair metal at the time, and it's different, but it's adjacent. Like most people I know that like 80s hard rock or 80s hair metal, they like Guns N' Roses, but it's finding out how like either your sound fits the time or like how you can react to the time. But like again, like the people that are more explosive and seem to come out of nowhere that are like a really cool reaction to like what's happening that other people haven't really figured out how to like make that voice happen. It's like, all right, like those guys are the ones that are remembered. Even within hair metal, it's like, who do we think of when we think about hair metal? Like, like there's the whiskey side, with Motley Crue, and then there's the England side with like, Def Leppard, and then
Yes.
they have their tiers down of like, all right, these guys are derivative, but they're doing their own things, and then these guys are really derivative at the bottom. But it doesn't really matter because there's enough room for everybody to be a part of that culture, no matter where you're at in the timeline or whatever, because you're propelling the genre forward that you believe in. And it's not about who's at the top. Like we need the trendsetters, but we also need the people that are going to make their own interpretations of it. And I mean, even the differences between Motley Crue and Rat are massive.
Yes.
Like it's and they're someone's favorite band for some reason. It's just when you look at hair metal, there's like a list of 50 dudes that like straight up or 50 bands, even the women, Vixen, like kind of stuff like that. Like there's a group of bands that like you can all be fans of. But if there's one band that's doing one thing, like and it's not even adjacent to anything in pop culture or a bigger music scene, like it can get lost super easily because there's no complementary bands, which means there's no easy tours to make, which
Right.
means there's no other records to buy, no greater conversation to have, no comparisons to make. And then because there's no conversations, it falls apart.
And, and yeah, and kind of the reason I asked the GNR question was because I knew you were going to mention Aerosmith, because when people think of GNR, they think nobody else was doing that. Well, but then they forget Aerosmith was still around, just not doing, what they did in the 70s, but they were still around. And again, you had Motley Crue and all this other stuff. It wasn't just Poison and all of that. And
Yeah.
yes, and I agree with you that Rat does have a different sound. And I contribute that mainly to Warren D. Martini, who, fun fact, a lot of people may not know this. when Frank Zappa was interviewed back in the 80s and someone asked him, who do you like that's popular right now? He goes, well, I don't listen to the radio, so I don't totally know about everyone that's at the top right now, but my son Dweezil is really into this band Rat, and they have this guitarist by the name of Warren DeMartini, and he's pretty good. Warren reads that interview and he's like, that is the greatest compliment I have ever received in my entire life.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah. But so yeah, you're right though. There even when you may not think, wow, this person is so unique, there's nothing that sounds like them. Yes and no. And you're doing that. And again, you said there are artists that are like, I don't know what I sound like. And then you're just like, well, you're coming in and doing what, again, a lot of the other labels are not doing. You're coming in and saying, yes, you are authentic and you do have a different sound, but there are other bands that I know you would sound great being on a bill with or something. Let's curate this playlist and put this all together so that people are going to actually hear you because they're listening to these other artists too. And not only that, this will help. And actually, this is another question I wanted to ask you. And this will help for when you want to put tours together and stuff like that. You'll understand who the fan base is and who are the other bands in the genre. So I guess my next question, because I could keep talking to Phil.
Looks like we got an Instagram comment
Oh,
question.
oh, wow, that's a big one. Can you? Oh yeah, can you comment on Ray winning 6 Brit Awards after getting dropped by her label and what it means for the possibilities for independent artists to make it without a major label? Yeah, that same person commented the same question on YouTube. I think we just missed it, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I honestly think that most labels don't really care about artist development, and a lot of these artists that are winning awards like after getting dropped by their label, or like have really like music that people listen to and identify with like super closely. Like I think it's because they know how to put in the work and they don't feel like they're above putting in that work. I honestly don't think a label is necessary for anybody. The reason I have a label is because like I collectively want to help be a part of that development process and help curate playlists for them and help them get on tours and do all these things. But a lot of these labels, like I know because like some of my friends are on the labels that I don't want to name just because like I don't want to shit on anyone. But like from what it seems is that a lot of these labels, they want people with pre-existing followings. That way they don't have to do the development work and whatnot. But like I think that not every artist knows how to do that by themselves. I've figured out how to do a lot of that for myself, and I want to share that help with other people that are my friends and lift them up together, and we all grow something as a group. But yeah, I think that it's a crazy time for independent artists, and I think that a lot of these major labels are just kind of like shitting themselves because like they know that they've lost control where they used to like lift up these countercultures. Like everything the labels used to prop up like was underground for a handful of years, and once it was at its peak and like the general public started getting like into, like then they would like start signing these bands, and then they would start reaping the rewards of something someone else started building in their own organic community, which isn't a bad thing at all, like because it means that good music is getting to people, and like at the end of the day that's what it's all about. It's about bringing awareness to stuff that like you think is good, and like the major labels have the ability to put way more widespread attention on stuff, but I think all the independent labels, they serve a really big purpose in like unifying scenes before the mainstream would care, and lift up those artists to be seen by more people and have increased visibility.
They're filling the indie labels are filling that creative void. I'm looking at two different screens over here. They're filling that creative void that the major labels aren't really for the most part. The major label is, like you said, they have the worldwide distribution, and they have the worldwide marketing, and they can get your name at the top of iTunes whenever you go into the store. They can get your name on a billboard or something like that. I mean, a billboard you drive by, but they can potentially get you on, billboard itself. But again, they're not trying, they don't have artist development, like you said. They're just trying to grab someone that sounds like this thing that's trending now. The indie label is, while they may not have the biggest amount of distribution, because they are operating on, they're trying new things and they're trying to see what works. And most importantly, they're looking for authenticity. You're looking for authenticity. The indie labels are looking for authenticity, and they will push out that authenticity and find a way to market it, which you've done. Steven Wilson, I'm going to go the complete opposite end of, well, not complete opposite end of pop, because he's done a couple pop records recently, but he always talks about he needs to make the music that he wants to make, and without other people telling him what to do. But then he says, but then when it comes time to push this out, he's like, I'm willing to do whatever we need to do to market this. Do we need to make a music video? What singles do we want to put out? What's a good day to, should we release it here or should we release it here? So it's what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I feel that, but like, dude, I honestly, I don't even think about it like marketing. I just think about it communicating. Because
Yes.
like I think once it's like that, and that was a big perspective change. Like when I started making the playlist, for instance, it's like how do I communicate like my music to people that would want to listen to it? Like it would not be an ad. Like people don't like ads. I don't like ads, dude. When I get an ad for a new band in my feed, like I ignore it. So like why would me doing an ad be literally any different? Like it has to, have value to like the person that you're, trying to get it to. Like I think that's where a lot of people, lose sight of like the importance of like how did you become a fan of whatever band you're a fan of? Like for me, none of my favorite bands were screaming at me behind a phone screen telling me I'm your new favorite band, pick me. For fans of Green Day, for fans of Liquid, it's like, dude, no, like sometimes like I will say it has worked for bands like 408 Band, like they do that a lot. I think that they're unique though because like their presentation they really show fun. It's not some guy with a guitar that's unenthused. Like these guys straight up act like, and they act like the band you would want. Like when I see them, I think about the American Pie movies I used to watch growing up, and the kind of fun and like they do funny skits and they're characters, dude. Like but that's who they are. Like even when Swaco was on his TikTok tear, like doing funny sketches and like jackass style humor and like making, songs that aren't on Spotify that are just so ridiculous. It's like, dude, this is hilarious. Like, it was hilarious. But it's a key into their world, dude. Like, if their shtick is like we do like all the, potty humor or like American Pie jokes or like, oh, dude, you slept with my girlfriend, or whatever, dude. Like,
Right.
that I'm still getting value out of that. I'm getting laughs, bro. Like I'm having a good ass time watching these 408 man videos. But when someone else uses the same text over something that's like, not very enthusiastic, it's like, what am I getting out of this? And it's you have to think about what are people getting out of whatever content you're making. It's like, again, it has nothing to do about you. It has everything to do about the person behind the screen. Like and if you're talking, it's like going to a party and for instance, like and I've known this guy like pulls out YouTube or pulls out Spotify and is like, listen to my band. And like, dude, I hate being next to that guy at the party because it's like, and then everyone leaves and then you're stuck with him and you're like, how long is this song gonna be? Like
Yes.
everyone's gone out of this conversation. And I'm the only one stuck in here because I didn't have, the courage to move out of the way fastest. And I'm not trying to make them feel horrible, but it's a conversation killer. Every piece of content I put on the internet is like, especially recently on the Sound Caffeinated TikTok, heavily unfiltered, no thought before posting, like just letting myself stream of consciousness say what I believe or what I think. And what's happened? It's resonated with people way better because it's like the way any conversation in the real world works. And even, having
It's
like,
like songwriting too. It's like when you get the first inspiration for a song, you're not thinking about it, it just happened.
but it's getting yourself out of your own way. And I think that's where like some of these celebrities, like, they like definitely they have help in coaching, where like they can learn how to, be themselves and really have no filter. And the more I think about this stuff is like, you know, even when I was a fan of like still a fan of Green Day, but like when Green Day was my, favorite band when I was, 12 or 15, like up to those ages,
Yeah.
everything Green Day did was a victory for me. Like I saw it as a personal victory. Like, oh, Green Day has a new record coming out. That means I have to talk about it. And I'm excited to talk about it because like they're, a lot of the stuff they sing about and say, like those are things I think about. And like those are things that are important to me. And like they were kind of like, I lived vicariously through them as a teenager and like really idolized them and like, fought the battles, fought the hard times too. Like that Uno Dos Tres thing when Billy went to rehab, I was like, hey, like he's just under a lot of pressure. Like give the guy a break, dude. Like,
Yeah.
and like that's where like, fans are, protective of the people that they feel like, I felt like Billy gave me a voice. Like I could have a voice because Billy was giving me the confidence to have a voice even if I was saying the speaking points, I knew that like I felt, connected and I felt protected because he was being the voice that I didn't have yet. And I've always heard this thing where like, and myself included, I've said this kind of stuff. That song is exactly how I feel. And I couldn't write that, especially when I was a teenager. Before I wrote songs like Rivers Cuomo, Gerard Way, like straight up, what's up, Gerard Way fan? You rock. I used to teach that guy. He's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
But dude, like you have these songs that really resonate with you. And you use them to help you navigate, a breakup or a political thing that's going on or whatever it is. Like you as an artist kind of have a responsibility to be your best self publicly. That way you can shed light on viewpoints that other people may not feel as confident about saying.
And that's the way it's been forever. Like last night I was watching, everybody will watch this will know The Who is my favorite band. So I was watching one of the big documentaries on them for the umpteen billionth time. But one of the things they point out in it was that they started out during the mod scene in London in the 60s. And the thing is, with a lot of those kids that were going out to nightclubs and were the first teenagers after World War II, they couldn't relate to the older generation because they did not live through the war. They did not experience all of that. And therefore, they didn't know how to express themselves at all. And
Yeah.
so when Townsend comes along and writes the first real hit for The Who, which was I Can't Explain, those mods, some of whom are still alive today, and said in this documentary, they came up to him after the first time they ever played that song. They're like, Pete, you finally said what we are trying to say, which is that we cannot explain how we feel, and you're telling everyone how we're feeling. They're like, please write more songs. And then that was when Pete basically became the laureate for the mod scene, and then for so many other musicians onward. And he, that was when he basically said, all right, this is what I was born to do. And he stayed that way forever. And every record they put out, all people found a way to relate to those lyrics because he was able to tap into the human spirit and how we all really do feel, especially the artist. I can tell you there are so many things he's written about that I personally can identify with and be like, I have felt like this person. So again, same thing, just different era, but it goes to show you that like it's always been that way
Well,
because it's human nature.
it is human nature entirely. Like we all want to feel connected to something. And I think the biggest problem, like, MTV on is entertainment started being like about the individual versus like the group. Like look at how like the algorithms today work so hardcore that nobody has anything similar in their feed. Like there's no common, connection or speaking points. Occasionally Netflix will drop a show that like, people will be talking about for 2 weeks, but like it doesn't have any, longevity past that. Like I remember back when I was a teenager, and it's not me saying my generation's better than your generation. I'm just saying like this kind of thing
You're
where
only like 3 years younger than me.
no, I'm just saying like in general to like,
Oh, okay.
because like there are so many people I know that are like, things were better back in my day. Um, but like, I'm talking more like about I'm basically telling the younger generation I'm not a 50-year-old man. I'm only 27. And I still don't think my generation is better than their generation. We all have cool things going on.
That's
But when we had monoculture, for instance, like monoculture is, basically like a curated mainstream culture that like we're all like, we all get our taste from. Like the way like everybody had the same favorite TV shows, or the same like the way like we were all watching Nickelodeon as kids, like whether it's SpongeBob and Danny Phantom, Jimmy Neutron. Like my generation of like 27, to like 35-year-old guys, like we can be talking about any of those shows at length all the time because those were our shows. We maybe had like 10 to 15 shows we could watch on like that program. And like that meant that like literally you could talk about Nickelodeon shows for days at like lunch, at recess, like, and even like at work as an adult, we still can talk about that at length. Or like the way, we would all collectively be like, oh shit, dude, the new Green Day album's coming out. Like I remember the amount of excitement when American Idiot hit, or even 21st Century Breakdown. But there were these like, unifying moments in like pop culture history where everybody fixated their attention on one thing, and it was a big event for everybody. Like Harry Potter book signings, dude.
yeah.
People would go to Barnes and Noble and like buy the Harry Potter thing together, like, and even at GameStop, they would do that for certain games where you'd be in a group setting, feed off of each other's excitement, and everybody's, doing that. Taylor Swift has that going on with album listing parties, and I think that's great for her. And I really do think it's a beautiful thing. Like I know people that do that, celebrate the new releases, and like that's why her community I think is superior to pretty much everything else. It's one of the last aspects of monoculture we have. But this kind of thing where like our generation, wondering where I was starting to go with this, but like the main thing I wanted to get across by saying this is like I think when everything got to like be about the individual's taste over the communal taste, and like more about like this is my thing and that's your thing, like even if people aren't putting up those barriers, like the whole idea of like the fact that none of us have a thing that unifies us together because all of our entertainment is so individualized, we forget that we need to be, the best part of like art and communities in general is sharing the culture together and sharing stuff with your friends. Like I made a video on my side on Caffeinated TikTok and all about like basically if you have a new favorite band or you have something you like in general, like you gotta tell people about it if you want it to, really set in, dude, and like be a part of more people's lives than just your own. Because sure, there's internet friends, like that's definitely cool, but like I remember when I was a teenager, like when there was a new Green Day album coming out, I remember Uno Straight era. I literally, because there are three different album drops like within like 4 or 5 months. I was literally prepping my friends for like, hey, next week, guys, new Green Day record.
Yeah.
5 days, guys. 4 days, guys. Like, dude, it came out today. You guys listen to this yet? Or like, you going to Rasputin's, a record store? Like, people bought CDs and stuff still. Like, but like, if you're a fan that like can get other people involved in it, like obviously like we don't have, the major label ability to like just be like everybody's looking at this because the world doesn't work that way anymore. And that's why the mainstream is floundering because their attention hose, like it doesn't work because like they
And
don't
they're
have,
operating off of an outdated business
yeah,
model.
they don't have the control of TV like where they can make us all watch, like people aren't even watching commercials anymore. Like I straight up watched my parents, pick up their phones or walk into the other room. Like get a drink or something when the commercials are on. When I was a kid, like people still watch commercials, and like your money to get your stuff in front of people, it actually was money well spent. Now it's money thrown out the window because people don't like being advertised to. But it goes back to show that like now that we're in this world, like you can no longer just throw money at something. You have to create a community around whatever it is you're trying to promote or whatever you care about. Like, and I see promotion more as like caring versus like
Yeah.
promotion, because if you get something in front of somebody that doesn't care, like, or the wrong person, like it doesn't do anything. But if you know that, like, okay, I like this, they like this, where's our common interest point? Let's figure out what the commonalities are, and then we can talk to each other about things they may not know about. We like classic example, like, I have friends that, like, like when my friends like Green Day or whatever, like it's like, hey, do you guys like also listen to their side projects like Foxborough Hot Tubs or the Network? And they're like, that exists? What's that? And I'm like, oh, it's Foxborough Hot Tubs, like Green Day if it's like a 60s garage rock band. They're like, no, we didn't know about that, but like, yeah, I'll check that out. And then they're like, oh shit, that's really cool. It's like you're just, all you're doing is helping your friends get more immersed in stuff that they like and having more connection points. And it's not a bit like, and there are some people that like love to gatekeep like the cool secret stuff. Like they're like, oh no, this is just for me. Like I don't want this getting too big. Like, but if you share the stuff you like with other people that would like it, like, dude, like the ability for that to grow and get more love and be helpful to someone else the way it's helpful for you, like, dude, like that's the biggest win of all time. And like getting entertainment and everything in general to stop being individualized and about the community again, like that's probably the best thing the mainstream ever did. Unify people over pop culture and get people on the same page over things. That way people could, humanize each other. Even it sounds stupid, but like, dude, I know people that are Republicans and Democrats that like, can't get along on anything with the opposition, but they can talk SpongeBob for hours
Yeah.
and like, have the best conversation about SpongeBob with those people, or both be at the Green Day concert, and nobody is bashing each other for who they are or what their viewpoints are. They're celebrating their commonalities, and then because they have common interests, and that serves as a padding, they can have more real conversations of each other because they care about each other, because they're important to each other. And it's not like when you're friends with someone, you can excuse some stuff and figure out how you can help them grow, and they can figure out how they can help you grow personally. And but like if you have no commonality and you get so obsessed with who you are as an individual, like you can really just destroy any form of connection like you could potentially have with someone.
Music is supposed to be unifying. Okay. Again, Townsend said it too. We come to a concert to lose ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I have friends who, complete opposite end, politically and whatever else, but we all love the same music. And again, we can talk about SpongeBob all day long. And that's, yeah, music is supposed to unify us. That's why gatekeeping is stupid. Why would you gatekeep? You want to have as many people to get. Music is supposed to bring people together. That is why we go to concerts, okay? Going to a concert is when we're supposed to put all of our differences aside and just enjoy this art right here. And again, talking about like gatekeeping being stupid, I'm always trying to tell people about bands, all the bands I love. I have friends who, like, for example, they may not know who Depeche Mode is, but they're very into rock music and they're also very into like keyboard oriented stuff. And I'm just like, well, here's a copy of Violator. Listen to this. They come back and they're like, this is awesome. I know, right? You
Yeah,
know,
man.
I'm all about doing that. Or there'll be someone, or I'll know someone who's very into like thrash metal, but they haven't listened to these guys. I'm like, yeah, I gotta check this out because these guys were influenced by Megadeth and whatnot. And then they'll hear it and be like, what? That's the thing. It's about bringing everyone together. And speaking of your thing with curating the playlists and having all the similar bands together. So this is something I've definitely wanted to ask you about. So you're doing these playlists right now, giving these artists the exposure. And a couple other things you got going on is you are selling these artists merch on the website too, correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about now, are you booking gigs for these bands too? Are you taking up the agent aspect of the label too, or what's going on with
Yeah.
that?
So I'll talk about all the things we're doing outside
Yeah.
of this, playlisting. Like that's definitely like, park number one, dude. Like we're talking about Disneyland, dude. Like that's like the Pirates of the Caribbean of like this whole fucking off, dude.
Oh yeah.
But the other lands, dude, we got like, definitely agent land is happening. Like I was talking about that band Longboy earlier.
Yeah.
I made some video, about like, oh yeah, we need bands to like, start start playing shows together, something like that. But like they were like, hey, like let's do something, let's figure this out. And pretty much immediately after we were in each other's DMs and like realized, oh, they're in Sacramento. Like, and my friends Remy, like that I play bass for, and Connor,
Yeah.
uh, like both guys that Connor Morrison, he's awesome. Connor Morrison and Remy Mulder. But like we've been talking about how do we play in Sacramento for like pretty much like the past 4 months. We're like, but how do we do it? Like we don't know anyone in Sacramento. You put the feelers out there, and people that want to work with you, like they hit you up and say, hey, this is great, man. Let's figure it out. Now we're talking about how can we be the openers for them in Sacramento, and how can they be the openers for us, San Francisco. That way we get like a good, you know, introduce our friends bands to each other's audiences. Like again, it's about sharing communities and like having a community merger instead of like trying to infiltrate Sacramento by ourselves. Who knows Sacramento bands and no draw because we're not in Sacramento.
Right.
Like you can't ask all your friends, hey, come see me an hour and a half away. But if you do it this way, it's great. And I got to play Bottom of the Hill in San Francisco a couple months ago,
Mm-hmm.
with this artist Azura, and like it went really well. But like honestly, like even though she was the touring artist, she should have been the opener because pretty much all my friends left. Like after I played, like I brought everyone to the show, and it's no hate against Azura, she's awesome. But if I were to do it again, I would have headlined. That way, everybody would have been there to see Azura play before I went on, and then they would leave when I was done playing.
Right.
And I felt bad for her because it's like I had all the draw, and by the time she was playing, there may be 10 people that wanted to stay out of like the 45 people that came to see Used to Be Valentine's.
Right.
And I think that it also takes the maturity to realize like you have to work up to be the headliner in areas that you aren't, the person that has the most audience at the show. And that's kind of one of the lessons I learned that I wanted to do with the Sacramento thing. It's like I don't want to go headline there. I know how this works. I've seen it literally every time. Even when I was a kid at Red House in Walnut Creek with my teenage bands on the bill would hate us because we would go like second, or first out of the entire band. They would think they're playing for like 50 or 60 people. And what happens? They see us play, everyone gets Chipotle and goes home, dude.
Yeah.
Um, so like if you know that and you have the foresight, like make the bill work for the other bands. Help
Yes.
the other bands get exposure by making sure that your friends and community that you have don't leave for the band that you're trying to help. And it's just another aspect of like having that honest conversation that a lot of bands aren't able to have because it's like more ego driven. It's like I'm the touring band, so I should be headlining. It's like actually no. If you look at literally Stand Atlantic is a perfect example. They are expert openers, and they can hit kind of the Sacramento area up to 4 times a year, and it's epic because like they open for all these people, and then they get a bunch of fans out to see them, in Roseville, like right outside of Sacramento, 4 times a year, and people are way more into the band. And like the opener slot is actually it's the goated slot. I'd rather open a show than be the headliner in a lot of cases, especially if I'm not promoting the show, or can't because I'm not regionally a part of that area as well. But the other things, yeah, merch. I'm starting to design merch for people. The initial plan for this whole thing was an apparel company to make cool T-shirts for bands before it even became a label. But on TikTok, it just started popping off too hard, and I was like, okay, well, I was eventually going to do this, but I guess it has to be this now, and I'm really glad it had that transition. But on on the T-shirt front, it's I see your comments. Sorry, who don't know about him. I don't know what you're referring to. What was your question?
Well, the question is, how does an authentic artist build an online following slash capture quote unquote fans who don't know about them? More personal content or music with frequent follow up?
I
He's saying fans who don't know about them. Oh, he made a typo earlier. So
Okay.
yeah, but yeah,
I'll answer that in a sec. Right after I finish the thing about the merch, but
yeah,
the merch like is that's another thing that like I have that skill set, and I've been designing my own shirts and even the album art for the Good Years. Like it's my dog Conway. Like I drew that, and I have that skill set. I feel like there's a lot of bands that have kind of lame merch because they basically hire a graphic designer to give them a logo, and yeah, logos are important. But like honestly, if your logo is not as cool as like Aerosmith's logo or like the Misfits or Rolling Stones, like who's gonna want to wear that?
yeah,
Like, and it's a valid thing that I've seen like all these bands print like the worst merch and no one buys it, and then they're left with all this dead stock that like isn't moving, and they invested $2,000 in a t-shirt, a garage full of t-shirts.
yeah.
Like it's bad, but with print on demand, for instance, and I think is a really ethical way to do this op too, is like it's only made if someone wants it. So like, environmentally, it's also sustainable and responsible. And for instance, like this is print on demand, my satin caffeinated shirt, and it's great quality. It's it doesn't rub off or anything. It's not like Redbubble where it's a you know what the hell are those called?
The,
Iron prints.
where
It's not
you,
on
it's like
print.
iron, it's like iron on.
Yeah, that's what Redbubble does, and it sucks. It flakes off in like a wash. But like this is called direct to garment,
Mm.
or it's digital printing, but it's inserted into the garment, so it's not going to wash out. And it's like kind of not replacing silk screening, but silk screening also has had a lot of problems throughout the years because like they need certain color dyes in order to make it happen. And if there's a shortage of a color, it means you have to change your palette. And the more colors you put on a screen printed shirt, the more expensive. This digital printing doesn't limit the color palette you can use, and you can get more color options because it's digital and they have more access to a wider palette. But
Probably how
aside,
most people. It's probably how that what you're talking about is probably how most people's like shirts they would buy at a huge concert, like how this one was probably printed.
yeah, exactly, because there's too much nuance in like the
Yeah.
grays and all that stuff. But it's legit, it's good, and one of the things I'm currently working on is getting a roster of bands to do those Warp Tour style neon monster shirts. And
Mm.
instead of making it like, oh, this is a merch drop for used to be Valentine's, it's like we all have neon monster shirts, like 5 or 6 bands, and it's a line you can do. And that way, like it's like a hot topic. Like, I used to get a lot of my favorite bands just because of the cool band merch at Hot Topic. And again, it wasn't like, oh, I can only buy Green Day shirts at Hot Topic. It was like, look at the Green Day shirt next to the My Chem or Ask Alexandria or Attack Attack or Mice and Men, and oh, look over there, there's a Metallica shirt too. That's kind of rando, but like, hey, dude, it's still rock, you know.
Yep.
Um, and it's cool because like with print on demand, I can leave this stuff up, and people have the ability to get it if they want it. If they don't want it, like I get to learn like why they don't like that design, or maybe revise it and make it better. But again, it's just another DIY effort that like luckily we have in this modern age where we can make cool shirts for each other.
Yeah. That is no, I really dig how You're doing that. And I remember when you started doing that a while ago, like just with used to be Valentine's, and I'm glad you're able to do it now for all these other artists on your roster. How many artists before we get to this question though, how many artists are on the label's roster now?
So really, like it's used to be Valentine's, my band, and Remy Mulder. But I'm helping a lot of bands that aren't on there. Like, definitely I want to have like a roster of like 5 to 6 bands right now because that's, all I can manage. I think the other big problem with these, labels is they take on too much that they don't have, the resources or people in order to give every band the amount of attention they really need. And again, like I'm on the phone with Remy like an hour a day, like even before this label, like helping him with the knowledge that I have because like literally, even though I teach music full time, this is like my full time job. I treat it like I have 2 jobs every day. And like I remember one of my music business professors at Berklee, he was telling me in his early days of managing bands, like if an artist called, you had to pick up, even if it was in the middle of the night. Like if it's important, you need to tend to them. And like that's literally the way it's been since I've gone public with this. And anybody that wants to reach out, get some advice or help or like, have me show them what's working for me and like we can, see what could work for them. And like I've done like a shit ton of artist consultations like in the past week alone, like talking at least 6 or 7 bands. It's pretty crazy. And again, it's just community building and sharing what you can share. And that's all that's what it's all about.
That's that really is awesome. I mean, I don't know what much more I can add to that. You've kind of just said it all right there. Why don't we get to this question over here? So, how does an authentic artist build an online following slash capture fans who don't know about them? More personal content or more music with frequent follow up? I think you kind of answered this earlier, but go ahead.
Yeah, at least for the sad and caffeinated TikTok, that's been like my fastest growing TikTok account. Only like posted 12 videos and I got like 90 followers like in the past couple days. Like it was one of my old playlist accounts where like basically what I do is I post my playlist every day. It gets like 700 to 1,000 views. I can get anywhere from like 50 to 120 likes on it. And then those out of those people, maybe 5 to 10 people that liked it saved the playlist on Spotify. And there's no Spotify link because I don't have a spot for a link yet because I'm under 1,000 followers. But now that like I'm up to like 260, like in every video, like every day I end up getting like around like anywhere from 4 to 12 followers, which is pretty great. But the thing I've noticed is the more personal I am, like, and again, like, I feel like personal with passion like there are definitely people that overshare on the internet hardcore and like it's just like any other social interaction like you got to work up that kind of relationship with your audience to get there like I think about it like how like Max and I like for instance like we can have some deep ass talks about like society feelings emotions like all that stuff but like we started on the surface like talking about bands we liked and the more you get to know someone, the more you feel more and more comfortable talking to them about stuff that is personal. And again, it's just effectively communicating what you want to communicate with people and making sure that like, you're reaching those stages of the relationship at appropriate durations. And I think most people understand what that is. Most people have a pretty good intuitiveness of what's oversharing and what's not. Um, but ultimately, like just being honest with what your messaging is and like connecting with people over stuff that like you actually feel. And for like I was talking to my friend Logan about why like rappers are so much bigger than like a lot of rock guys currently, and he was saying that like a lot of his friends that listen to rap music, like even if they are just casual listeners for this for the music, like they know the entire lore behind the band or behind the rapper like the way like I can talk about Green Day's viewpoints for hours like I know how they feel about politics. I know how they what they like to do. I know their sense of humor. I know what I love their songs, but like there's so much more to them than just the band or just the music. And I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier about the comfortability you have behind the camera is like that's what limits you from reaching people. And the more comfortable you are talking to people, the more people connect to it because like the less you're hiding from who you actually are. Because like it's just the way it works in the real world. Like if you're scared to say something, people can feel that energy and they don't really see you being real. But as soon as you're being real, like people can actually react to what you say, like whether they disagree with you or agree with you. And it's the same kind of thing where like some people, it's like, oh, okay, I don't vibe with that anything they said, but I respect them for like, putting it out there. Like as long as it doesn't hurt someone and as long as it's not a really shitty thing to say, like pretty much it's all okay. But like you have to walk the walk, dude. Like for instance, with the sad and caffeinated thing, like I've been talking about bringing the scene back together. If I decided to like just put that video up there and everyone's like, I want your help, Niels, and I'm like, ghost everyone. It's like, what would that look like? That would look like, okay, my words don't mean anything. There's no validity behind this thing. There's no reason to back it because like he's not doing what he says he's doing. It's like if you're gonna that's the other side of the coin. If you say you're gonna do something, you have to do it. Because if you don't, people will lose faith in you for good reason because it's you're lying about who you are, like, and it goes back to just being honest and authentic, but also saying stuff that has a meaning and a purpose, like that you care enough about to become the person you're claiming to be. And for me, like the past, like I was telling Max earlier, like the past like week and a half has been one of the most transformative periods of my life, and a lot of it is because like I am now walking the walk that I've wanted to do for mad long, and I'm not planning on stepping down. I'm planning on only just going harder in the paint, and it's making my online community a lot more inspired by my words because I'm not just complaining. I'm making actions based off of the problems that I see in this community.
It's the most viral stuff out there that isn't just clickbait is the stuff where people are being absolutely authentic. I mean, a great example of that is over New Year's when Cat Williams went on and that video got 40 million hits in what was it, like 4 or 5 days or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, he was saying some pretty controversial stuff in there, but he was being himself. He was completely unfiltered and just saying what he had wanted to say for so many years, believe it or not. He had that kept in him for a long time. All those
Yeah.
things he was saying about Kevin Hart and Steve Harvey and Cedric the Entertainer and all that. And then not only did that video get 40 million hits, but then there was a whole resurgence of people taking the clips of what he's saying he stole this joke from me, and then they put the side by side comparison up there.
I remember this.
And
Yeah.
there was a whole generation of people who probably did not grow up watching Cat's stand up routine or whatever. But then all of a sudden that came out and just started hitting everyone's news feed, and they're like, "Whoa, what, really?" And he broke the internet basically because he started just telling the truth, saying how you really feel, putting yourself out there and being real about it.
Yeah, dude, that's entirely it. And I will say, as far as like the virality thing, like as a new artist, like it for me, I was telling Max about the Scott Pilgrim video I did where I was, talking about Scott Pilgrim, and like it pissed off a lot of people and I started getting a lot of internet hate. And like even though I was getting like equally amount as likes, if not more than the negative comments, I got put on the wrong side of TikTok where like people were lashing out against me and the views were going up because the engagement was crazy. People had opinions on what I was saying. And basically I was just saying is like, Scott Pilgrim like isn't that bad of a guy. Like both him and Ramona are like, both pretty toxic for each other. And I was just commentating on how the new TV show Scott Pilgrim Takes Off handles, the development of these characters, video essay style. But people, they will read your caption. They won't. Most reactions happen within the first second or two of viewing. Most people don't watch the whole video. It's like the same idea of getting your opinions based off of reading newspaper headlines. Like, so like for me, I've learned that I need to just keep on working on feeling more and more comfortable being myself in front of the camera, and the more and more comfortable, like Max is saying, like about being really authentic and really honest openly. But like Cat Williams, for instance, like has developed the self security and like trusts his self image where none of those negative words matter to him, and even if they do, he knows how to calm himself down from it. Where like virality, I feel like is super dangerous, not only for like, like, oh, your art gets viral and you don't have a follow up, but for your own security and sanity. Because like for me, I've really had to condition myself to be very comfortable with what people are going to do or say or twist my words or whatever. Because like again, back to the intentions, like if your intentions are good behind everything you say, it's not problematic. If you have intentions that are bad behind what you say, like yeah, that can be a big problem, like because words do influence people. And like there are definitely times in history where like words can literally be used to get people on board with like really crazy, hate speech. And but if you have positive intentions, if it's about unity, and it's you're not scapegoating anyone, like you're doing it, whatever you're saying is focused on uniting people together, and it's a positive thing. It is a positive thing. But there's a crazy power to words. And like that's why like you can have a guy like Kanye West, it's like super influential, but also like says some really shitty things that in he doesn't really realize that sometimes his words can really negatively affect a marginalized group of people, like hardcore. Like his comments on the Jews like were totally messed up and fucked up, dude. Like, and it had serious repercussions, not just him losing his endorsements, but like what it did for that community, and how it hurt them, and how people use that as a way to like be like, okay, that validates how I feel. So like, boom, it's okay. It's like that's what people don't get about celebrities is like they 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 have so much influence over people, and this is a power. Your platform should be used for good, not evil. And you should really just, if you're a good person, there's not going to be a problem. If you're a bad person, there can be a lot of problems. That's the power of words, dude. It's crazy.
And and not only that, how do we know how much of the stuff they're going out there and saying for the record is really how they feel, or is it just what their publicist told them to say too?
I think with Kanye though, like that definitely
Oh,
came
that's
that
that
definitely
that
came apart in a really negative way. But but yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's the same thing, dude. Like if you don't want to become a mouthpiece for something that you don't want to become a mouthpiece for, like you have the ability to stop that. And I think that you have an obligation to not endorse anything you don't personally feel comfortable endorsing. And I think that we're getting really deep here about like the role of artistry in society, but like back to the thing I was talking about earlier, it's like if you are one of the people that currently feels that they have something they can publicly say, and the confidence to say what they want to say publicly, and it's for the betterment of like the community, like that is a responsibility to make sure that feel people feel your words in a positive way, and you're making things better instead of pulling stuff down. And I think that like the security, at least what I find, and like when I do these TikTok videos, and some of the stuff I do say can be a little abrasive. Like I made some videos on like elder emos that are old heads that like don't like new music, and like I was basically saying like, come on guys, like literally we are making stuff derivative of your stuff. Like you're saying it's derivative, we're saying it's inspired, because your favorite bands are our favorite bands. We just want to keep this culture alive, and that's what we're doing. Like sure, what I'm saying initially is like, oh, elder emos that are old heads, like you're missing out on one of the best generations of music. A little abrasive, a little attention, grabbing. But at the same time, like it's like a thing where like you I'm passionate about what I'm saying, and I know people like that. And at the end of the video, I do like a disclaimer, like, hey, if you're an elder emo that's not an old head and you like new music, you're one of the coolest people ever, dude. Thanks for your support and thanks for like continuing to care for the future of this genre. And like those elder emos really really feel it because we all know those people that think that their generation is better than the current one, and like that if it didn't come out when they were 17, like they're not going to enjoy it, which is unfortunate. But again, like you know if you talk about what you're passionate about, you believe it, and it's a positive thing and it's unifying, rock and roll, dude. If you say shitty stuff, like fuck you, like
Yeah,
that's
duh.
it, dude.
Yeah. And actually, just to clarify, I wasn't saying that I thought that was Kanye's publicist telling him to
Oh
say
no,
it.
no,
That was totally just him being a fucking asshole. And
yeah,
yes,
dude, I know.
and yes, I did just say that on the internet. But it's the
just,
truth.
I'm just saying that because like, well, again, videos can be taken out of context all the time. And like, that's the other thing. It's always good to provide context for
Yep.
whatever you don't know how people are going to use your videos or how they're going to use it. But like, it is what it is, man. If you're a public figure, things can happen. But at the same time, you can use this power to inspire other people to do stuff. Like even some of the students I teach that are like 14, 15, they see what I'm doing with Used to Be Valentine's, and they're inspired by it. And like I tell them like all the time, I'm like, hey, you're the next generation, because that's true. Like instead of having them have this thing where they idolize me, like we all idolize people older than us. Like it's a thing where like I get the ball back in their court. It's like, you like what I did? I want to hear what you have to say. Like when you grow up, like you're going to be doing what I'm doing. Like maybe not a music teacher on the grind to get his band, be his career or whatever, but like it's like straight up like, if you like music and you want to write music, like write music so you can get some kid your age when you're my age to want to do the same thing. Cause like that's how this whole thing works, is if you keep lifting up the next generation with the resources that you've accumulated through your hard work. Like that's how a culture stays alive. Like, and punk's an interesting thing because there are a lot of punks, generations of punks that are very negative towards the future generations. And I really want to be part of the solution of breaking that pattern and helping people.
It's all about, again, what I was saying before, unifying everybody together, bringing everyone together into this community so we can all participate in what we were put on this planet to do, and that is music.
Yeah.
Niels, I absolutely love what you're doing with this label, dude. This is fantastic. So, can you tell us what? So, because I know the Zoom thing's gonna run out in about a half hour. So, I
Yeah,
put
dude.
all the links to the thing in here. But I want to know, just so, are there any artists that, or maybe you can't say this yet. Do you have any other artists that are like on the verge of getting onto your roster yet, or like what can we expect coming up next with Sad and Caffeinated?
So I think the big thing is I have artists that like I'm definitely talking to like every day that aren't like officially on it. I wouldn't be surprised if sooner than later there are more people on the roster. I think it's a thing where like people want to see where this goes before they sign on. I'm still proving myself to not only people on TikTok, but people in the music community, because people know what labels have done in the past. Like people know what kind of manipulation can happen, or like even if it's like from a good viewpoint, like there are a lot of things that like you have to build up that trust and build up that rapport and relationship. um I'm just helping my friends, like regardless if they're signed to used to be bound or not used to be bound as a signed caffeinated. I don't care. I want good music to be heard, and it's not gonna change how I help my friends with these playlists that I'm doing. And if they're a good fit, they're a good fit. And for the people that aren't a good fit for the current playlist I have, like that playlist I made for Remy, I made him one called "Wasting Time Listening to Sad and chill acoustic vibes. It's out 27, saves over like 4 days. I made that for him. We got 2 hours to do. And it's like, it's got my friend Matt Alfano, like from Berklee. It's got, my friend Tom Barvik that I met at a punk show, but he makes a lot of dope acoustic music. It's got like Nora Tyrrell, like, from Berklee too. It's got Sam Robbins from Berklee. I went to Berklee College of Music. So like I know a lot of people
Yeah.
all over the world, but like that's also what's super helpful is like I know what other artists are kind of doing the same grind adjacently to my friends in the Bay Area, and it's like let's put them together. Like, and I've even changed people's algorithm already. Like my friend Nora, like now has a Bermuda Search Party, like used to be Q-Tip Bandits,
Yep.
and Sam Robbins is like artist, and I made that happen in 2 days, which is kind of crazy. Like, but again, like I know how to alter the algorithm and pair things together because ultimately, if we want to have a community like that's sustainable, it can't be about how do I get my band to be paired with a band that's 10 years older than me. It's like how do I get that and also bands that are on the come up with me so we can be that group of bands that helps propel the next generation forward because the goal of this is like by the time we're doing well, the next effort is going to be how do we get the next generation a leg up with what we do, because I think that's what the missing connect has been is like our generation kind of got lost, but if it got lost it means we got to do a little more heavy lifting than other generations had to that got the luxury of going on tour with bigger bands, and if we can get our generation to rise together, by the time we're doing well, we can bring the next generation on board and serve as like you know something that propels them forward quicker than what my current grind is right now. And that's the goal of it. I don't want to become a label that like it's for my friends only. There will come a time where I'm an old man, you know, by the time I'm 40, like, and 40 isn't old, but by the time I'm 40, I'm gonna want to, get some guy my age or some girl my age, like, woman or man my age, current age, to tell me what's up and say, hey, now you're an old man. Like, if you want to keep this thing alive, you're gonna have to listen to me. And like, I'm not above that. I think I've experienced that enough in my own life with people in venues situations or cover band situations, and some of the stuff they're unwilling to do, the stuff I'm willing to do by myself with my own team proves that I'm right. But again, I'm not always going to be right, and I'm not above being wrong either. Like that's why it's a collaborative thing. I talk with other artists. Like I even have my group of dudes that I run stuff by because it's like I'm not the Grand Wizard of Oz, dude. Like life is a collaborative op, and that's why the label exists. It's because it's a collaborative op. Like I don't want it to be one person making the answers. I want it to be greatest idea wins.
Dude, that is such a huge, huge thing you said right there. Is that like you're not above because you want what's best for the artist, you're not above someone else coming in and trying to keep you up to date with what is good for that artist, even if you may not be in the know as much at a certain point. And that's another thing I think the major labels are lacking. They're operating off of, like I keep saying, an outdated business model because they're not bringing people in like yourself to be like, hey, let's times are different now. We gotta start implementing things like this and this and this. That is going to not only benefit the artist, but that will also help us to make a profit at the same time and not just have one or the other.
Yeah, totally, man.
So yeah. Well, I think we've been on here for about an hour and a half, and the thing's gonna shut off. So before we start going down another rabbit hole, because I could talk with you about this all day, but dude,
Yeah,
I absolutely love what you're doing. I've put links in the YouTube video, but for people watching, if they want to come and if they want to come check you out now, just sadandcaffeinated.com.
yeah, dude. Sadandcaffeinated.com, Sadandcaffeinated on TikTok too. That's where like we're most present. You can hit us up on Instagram. I'm gonna be doing more artist shout outs there. and on the Instagram story. But yeah, really like that TikTok. If you want to know how I feel about stuff, that's the where to go. If you want to buy merch and like check out what we got up there and our artist roster and our playlist too. They're all up on sadandcaffeinated.com. And then Instagram, dude. We're gonna do more artist shout outs and stuff. So rock and roll. Yeah, thanks for having me, Max.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on. This was a really great time. I'm excited for you. I'm really excited for you. You're
Yeah.
welcome. All right,
Yeah.
everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'll keep you posted on the next on what's coming up next. Make sure you follow Niels's social media, but also make sure you follow Sad and Caffeinated on Instagram. Go check out the website, and yeah, and start DMing him. All right, because he's a good dude and he knows what the hell he's doing. All right, Niels, you be well, my dude. All right,
Dude, rock and roll, man.
rock and roll.